Have you guys ever been driving down the road when all of a sudden your wheel starts to do this? Well, this is commonly referred to as Chevy shake in Chevy vehicles or death wobble, among others. So today we're going to talk about why this situation happens, how we diagnose it, and how we fix it on today's episode. So welcome back to the channel. We're glad you guys are joining us. So today we're talking about a situation commonly referred to as either death wobble and in some Chevy vehicles called Chevy shake. All of a sudden, when you're driving along the road and you may hit a rut or a slight bend in the road, the wheel starts to shake uncontrollably, which makes the entire vehicle shake uncontrollably. Now, this is not only scary, it's extremely concerning because you don't know if something's coming apart, if a wheel's about to fall off. So we're going to hand it off to Dustin, who is going to explain to us how the vehicle's diagnosed, what parts were needed to be replaced, and how we fixed it.
Chevy shake is a condition where the whole vehicle is going to shake uncontrollably and make you shit your pants. Hey, I'm here to talk to you today about Chevy shake and death wobble. Death wobble? What's that? That sounds terrifying. It can be. It's a pretty scary experience. So what Chevy shake or death wobble is when multiple, or some cases rarely, single components of the steering gear of the vehicle start to wear out, have play in the joints, and exhibit a condition where the steering wheel and entire vehicle shakes uncontrollably at a hard rate. So recently we had a Chevy 3500 HD dual rear wheel truck come in. It came in for brake work. The brakes were in such bad condition I couldn't even test drive the vehicle until we had replaced all four corner pads, rotors, and even a caliper was completely blown out. Once I had replaced all of those components, I took the vehicle for a test drive. About halfway through my test drive, I got to experience a taste of Chevy shake. About 30 miles an hour, the whole thing started shaking on me and felt like the whole entire truck was going to lose all of its parts. Fenders seemed like they wanted to fall to the floor, doors would have shaken off. That's what it felt like. So on my test drive, after I had that shaking experience happen, we brought it back to the shop for the diagnosis. Typically, when you do a diagnosis on front-end parts like this, on this truck, where you've got a swing set, which the difference between a rack and pinion steering system and a swing set system is a number of components. That's an easy way to put it. Swing set's going to have a middle bar. That's your inner tie rod ends thread into. Your outer tie rod ends thread onto those inner tie rod ends and attach to outer points on the wheels. When you bring it back to the shop to shake it down, ideally you want to have the vehicle down on its weight for swing set systems. So with the vehicle down, no lift necessary. All you need to do is have one person down on the ground looking at all of these joints, all these components here, to make sure when somebody at the steering wheel starts wiggling it ever so slightly, if you see play at these joints, see that's a solid joint, these should be pretty difficult to move. But if the steering wheel is shaking ever so slightly and these are moving quite easily, that's usually a pretty good sign you've got excessive play. A different part that'll show a different way of being worn out is the steering stabilizer, which 9 times out of 10 what you're going to see is it's going to have oil and hydraulic fluid leaking outside of it, and it will no longer be tough to compress and make so that the wheels can be stable side to side. So once we brought it back to the shop, I ended up shaking down the front end, and I found that this particular 3500 HD dual rear wheel truck had excessive play from the inner tie rod ends. Outer tie rod ends were suspect, but we replaced them in this case just being how bad the Chevy shake was. Pitman arm had excessive play at the joint here, and the steering gearbox was very bad. Basically, this will mount to the frame as such. The steering shaft runs through the column to this end of it. When you turn the wheel, this shaft will turn and wiggle, and this will move, which ends up moving this arm, the Pitman arm, and it will move the steering gear left or right, however which way you turn the steering wheel. So if you've got play in the steering gearbox, or any of these components, get them replaced immediately because you might run into a situation at speed where you get a Chevy shake or death wobble. So after repairing these various worn out components, replacing them on the vehicle, I'd taken it out for a test drive to verify that all my repairs were proper and the vehicle wasn't going to exhibit death wobble anymore. Once we ended up doing a shorter test drive, I recommend if you're going to do the repair and take it for a test drive after you experience death wobble, start slow. Go from 0 to 40, 0 to 30. Like I said, mine happened at 30 miles an hour, so it might not take a whole lot of speed to exhibit that. So just be safe, start low. Once you get to 40 and you've gone a mile or two and you haven't experienced anything, hit the interstate. If you hit the interstate, you should hopefully have no shakes. No shakes, repaired vehicle. If you still have shakes at speed, bring it back to the shop, shake it down, and reevaluate the front end because there's something else going on. Chevy shake is going to be primarily due to gearbox, pitman, and tie rods. Steering stabilizer can contribute. Death wobble on Jeeps is usually going to be a track bar or a steering stabilizer or a couple. So once you get all of those worn components replaced, you should be able to take her for a test drive and be confident in going where you're going.
So as you can see, when it comes to fixing the front end of vehicles, when parts of the front steering linkage starts to break down, starts to get looseness, and the parts of the steering that are supposed to hold together and the parts that are supposed to absorb shock, particularly the steering dampener, those types of parts included with the tie rod ends, steering gears, and all those parts combined can end up causing this type of situation. On Jeeps, it's typically that track bar or track bar bushing that usually causes this situation, accompanied by that steering dampener. But it's definitely something to take serious, and if this has ever happened to you, you want to make sure to get it to your local mechanic as soon as possible to take care of this situation because it can be very scary to drive and dangerous as well. So thank you guys for joining me. Be sure to like this video if it brought you some value. Comment below if you have any questions. Subscribe so you don't miss any more of our new videos. Follow us on Facebook or our website, pitstopcarcare.com.